Imagine this scenario for a second. You go out and you buy, like, every cutting-edge AI model on the market.
Oh, right. The absolute dream scenario for a tech leader.
Exactly. You secure the enterprise licenses, you roll it all out to your team, and you send those big, company-wide congratulatory emails.
Patting yourself on the back for being so forward-thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And yet, somehow, miraculously, 12 months from now, you look around and you are the exact same company.
Which is incredibly common, unfortunately.
Right. Your workflows haven't fundamentally shifted, your output hasn't really changed, and, all those structural bottlenecks are still just sitting there.
It's arguably the great illusion of modern business right now. I mean, you feel this immense sense of velocity because you just purchased the fastest, most sophisticated tools available.
But nothing is actually moving faster.
Because the actual vehicle you were driving hasn't changed its core architecture at all. It just has a nicer dashboard.
That tension, that gap between buying a capability and actually transforming a company, is the entire focus of our deep dive today.
And it is a massive topic.
It really is. We are exploring a rather fascinating new project and field guide called Translational Intelligence. It's put together by a builder in the biotech space named Titus.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, you can explore the whole framework over at translationalintelligence.com.
Right, and it's essentially billed as the organizational operating system for building an AI-native biotech company.
And, the core problem this project addresses is incredibly profound, not just for biotech either, but really across the board.
Because the technology itself isn't the roadblock, right?
Exactly. AI transformations aren't stalling because the underlying technology is failing to deliver. They are stalling almost entirely on company culture.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We really want to unpack the philosophy of what we're going to call the translation layer in AI transformation.
Right. We need to understand how an organization actually converts these wild, kind of probabilistic new technological capabilities into durable advantages.
Scientific and operational advantages that actually stick. So whether you work in a clinical stage biotech trying to get a drug to trial or literally any other field, we're going to uncover why simply bolting new technology onto old processes is just a recipe for stagnation.
It really comes down to changing how people actually work, which is, frankly, the hardest thing an organization can ever execute.
The hardest, but also the most vital. So to start, we have to establish a baseline. Because we know buying AI doesn't automatically change a company's DNA. How do we distinguish a superficial upgrade from a legitimate transformation?
Well, the source material makes a really critical philosophical distinction here. It's the difference between being AI-enabled and being AI-native.
Okay, unpack that for us.
So traditionally, when a company acquired new technology, the operating model remained exactly the same. They would take a new software tool and just bolt it onto their unchanged stack of work.
Just adding a shiny new tool to the same old assembly line.
Right. The goal was to do the exact same things they had always done, just a fraction faster. That is being AI-enabled.
But that doesn't work anymore.
Not with this technology. Applying that legacy approach completely breaks under the weight of AI. To be truly AI native, the company's actual work, its incentive structures, the daily rhythms, all of it must be entirely redesigned from the ground up.
That distinction really makes me think about the transition from, like, the typewriter to the word processor.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Thanks. I mean, if you just take a typewriter and attach a digital screen to it so you can see your typos before they hit the paper, you might type a little faster. That's being enabled.
Yeah, but you are fundamentally still striking keys in a linear fashion.
Exactly. But when the true word processor arrived, it completely changed the physics of drafting. You could move whole paragraphs, restructure arguments on the fly, collaborate differently. The work itself changed.
That is a much more accurate way to visualize it. You're basically redesigning the vehicle for a completely different kind of physics.
Which brings us directly to the title of the project, Translational Intelligence.
Right. The text defines this as the institutional capacity to keep turning emerging technological capabilities into durable scientific, operational, and strategic advantages.
And doing it exactly as fast as they arrive.
Yes. That speed is crucial.
And honestly, the phrase "as fast as they arrive" is where I think a lot of leaders might feel their blood pressure spike.
Oh, absolutely. It's intimidating.
Right. Because if you are the target audience for this guide, let's say you're a small clinical stage biotech. You have a very tight financial runway, strict FDA milestones to hit, and zero spare quarters to just sit around philosophizing about organizational redesign.
You're just trying to survive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Traditionally, it's like putting a jet engine on a horse-drawn carriage to make the horses run faster. But in the AI era, you actually have to build an airplane. So how on earth do you find the time to rebuild the airplane while you are actively flying it?
It is the defining operational question for these startups. And, well, the methodology insists on a highly pragmatic, modular approach to survive it.
Meaning you don't just shut everything down.
Exactly. You do not halt operations to do a massive top-down corporate restructure. You build this new architecture one specific piece at a time.
So you protect the runway while building the new system.
Right. You fiercely protect your runway while laying a parallel foundation. It's about strategic, targeted evolutions that solve immediate friction points. You aren't trying to boil the ocean all at once.
Okay, let's dig into the mechanics of that then.
Yeah.
If we can't do it all at once, what does the actual framework, this operating system, look like on the ground?
The source outlines a system built on 3 interlocking pillars: permission, people, program.
Permission, people, program.
Right. These have to grow simultaneously to build that institutional capacity. But the thing that really anchors this framework is a very specific financial and strategic doctrine.
Okay, what's the doctrine?
The guiding rule is buy the record, build the intelligence.
Buy the record, build the intelligence. I'll push on that a bit. What exactly constitutes the record versus the intelligence in a modern biotech setting?
Well, traditionally, companies would just buy an entire monolithic off-the-shelf software suite, roll it out across the enterprise, and just sort of hope it solved their problem.
Like a huge generic vendor solution.
Exactly. They essentially outsourced both their system of record and their intelligence layer to a vendor. But in the AI era, relying on generic vendor solutions for your core science is a massive strategic vulnerability.
It's no longer sufficient.
Not at all. You need the absolute discipline to know exactly where to spend your capital and where to conserve it. So buying the record means purchasing the foundational infrastructure.
Like what, specifically?
The standard cloud storage, the basic laboratory information management systems, the raw API access to foundational models. You don't build those, you just buy them.
Because they're commodities at this point, right?
Yeah.
There's no competitive advantage in building your own cloud storage.
Precisely. But you must build the intelligence. That is where you secure your competitive edge. It's the part that only your specific company can create based on your unique data and goals.
Okay, wait, let me play devil's advocate here. Because if I am pitching this to a board of directors, they want lean operations.
Of course they do.
They want our capital going toward clinical trials, not a massive internal software engineering team. Doesn't building the intelligence imply hiring a small army of machine learning engineers? That sounds staggeringly expensive.
It's a very common misconception, actually, and a dangerous one. Building the intelligence does not mean building a new underlying large language model from scratch.
Okay, so we aren't trying to out-engineer OpenAI or Google.
No, definitely not. Building the intelligence means building your company's unique capacity and culture around the AI.
Ah, I see.
It means developing the proprietary workflows. Like, how do your scientists specifically use an LLM to analyze in vitro assay data to predict clinical efficacy?
So it's about the application, not the raw model.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
is about building the organizational muscle memory to leverage these probabilistic tools in a way that is entirely unique to your pipeline.
Wow, okay.
Buying AI is the easy part. Becoming a different company is where the real building happens, and that building is fundamentally cultural and operational.
Which naturally leads us to the mechanism of that cultural change. If the secret to building this intelligence isn't, writing thousands of lines of new code, but rather shifting human behavior, who is actually responsible for executing that on the ground?
Right, because a CEO can't exactly sit at the bench holding the hand of every single scientist.
Exactly. So who does it?
This is where the concept of the translation layer becomes a highly specific tactical role. The source introduces a critical position called the AI product partner.
I found this concept so fascinating because it addresses the exact point where most transformations just completely fail.
Yep. Their specific mandate is to carry the AI capability directly into the actual daily work and make the behavioral change stick.
Contrast that with how we used to do it.
Oh, think about the legacy approach to software rollouts. Traditionally, tech adoption was a top-down mandate from an IT department. You'd get a memo from leadership, maybe a mandatory training video.
That you'd watch on double speed while answering emails, right?
Exactly. And that was considered change management, but that deterministic approach falls completely flat when dealing with AI.
Why is that?
Because these systems are probabilistic, they are highly nuanced, and they touch the actual cognitive core of knowledge work. You cannot mandate their adoption via a memo.
It requires an actual human.
It requires a dedicated human partner to integrate the technology into the messy, complex reality of daily scientific workflows.
So the AI product partner acts almost like an elite diplomat, bridging two incredibly distinct cultures.
That's a great way to put it.
Because on one side, you have Silicon Valley tech, right?
Yeah.
Probabilistic models, prompt engineering, rapid iteration. And on the other side, you have clinical biology, strict regulatory compliance, pipette work, deterministic in vitro data.
Two totally different worlds.
And the AI product partner has to speak both languages fluently. Is it fair to say transformations stall primarily because leadership assumes the software will just adopt itself, completely ignoring the need for this human translation layer?
That is the absolute crux of the issue. The text argues that tools, no matter how advanced, do not change a company. People do.
So if you neglect the human element,
The transformation doesn't die in some dramatic server crash. It quietly bleeds out on the culture. People encounter the slightest friction with the new tool and immediately revert back to their old comfortable habits.
because nobody was there to guide them through the friction.
Right, because no one was there in the trenches with them to walk them across the bridge into a new paradigm of working.
It makes complete logical sense. But, it's always easier to talk about high-level culture frameworks, in theory.
Sure.
I want to look at how this doctrine actually survives contact with reality. When you have strict FDA milestones bearing down on you, how does this translation layer operate in practice?
This is where the field guide shifts from philosophy to highly practical execution. Titus outlines specific engagements at real biotech companies, places like Avidity and others, dissecting exactly what happened when this methodology met real-world constraints.
Let's look at enterprise enablement at Avidity, for instance.
Okay, yeah.
The micro-enablement approach.
Right. So if you think about the old model of corporate training, it usually involved a massive days-long offsite.
The worst.
You'd fly half the company to a hotel, overwhelm them with dense PowerPoint presentations for 3 days, disrupt an entire week of scientific work.
And just pray they retained maybe 10% of it.
Exactly. But you simply can't apply that heavy-handed approach in a fast-moving biotech. At Avidity, they flipped the model. They trained half the company in person, but only 15 minutes at a time. It was micro-enablement.
Wait, what does that actually look like in practice, though? Just 15 minutes. How do you learn anything in 15 minutes?
Well, it means the AI product partner sits down with a researcher at their actual desk. They look at a specific, frustrating bottleneck that researcher is facing that exact day.
Like what kind of bottleneck?
Maybe parsing a really messy spreadsheet of assay results. The partner spends 15 minutes showing them how to use an AI tool to write a quick script to clean that exact data set, and then they walk away.
Oh, wow. So it's immediately useful.
Yes, it solves an immediate pain point, provides a little hit of dopamine, and creates a spark. They provided just enough targeted value that the teams organically started teaching themselves and each other.
I love that. That deeply
love
respects their time, and it anchors the technology to an actual problem rather than an abstract concept. But the case study that really highlighted the friction of this transition for me was the regulatory writing example.
The IND drafting trial.
Yes, the investigational new drug drafting trial.
That is a perfect example of two incompatible mindsets colliding.
Exactly. You look at the reality of a regulatory writer. Their entire job is built around strict FDA compliance. The documents they produce must be 100% deterministic and accurate.
Zero room for error.
None. And then you hand them a large language model, which is fundamentally probabilistic and prone to hallucination. Of course they're going to reject it.
The text mentions they face an entire year of no. 12 solid months of resistance to using AI for regulatory drafting.
And that resistance was entirely rational from the perspective of the regulatory team, right? They were protecting the company's compliance.
Completely rational.
But then they applied this human translation layer. They put the AI product partner in a room with the writers for 3 days, and they turned a year of entrenched resistance into an afternoon's breakthrough. How did they actually bridge that gap?
They did it by co-designing a workflow that respected the constraints of the regulatory environment.
So they didn't just force the tool on them.
No, the AI product partner didn't just give them a login and say, trust the AI. They sat down and mapped out exactly where the AI was safe to use.
Like drafting summaries.
Right, perhaps synthesizing raw data tables into first draft summaries, while strictly keeping the human expert in the loop for the final regulatory nuance and review.
So the human is still the ultimate authority.
Exactly. They used the translation layer to build a customized, constrained system that turned the AI from a compliance liability into a really powerful drafting engine. Once the writers saw they still had ultimate control over the final output, the friction just dissolved.
It proves that the barrier was never a technological limitation of the AI. The barrier was the fear of disrupting a highly sensitive workflow.
And once you remove that psychological friction, the adoption is almost instantaneous.
Right. And often the most profound shifts come from the most unassuming interventions, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Take the case study on automation adoption.
Oh, yeah, the junior analyst.
Right. They deployed what looked like a seemingly trivial automation for a junior analyst. It just automated some manual data scraping and reporting, effectively giving that one person their afternoon back.
The task itself wasn't even the point, which is what makes this so compelling to me.
Exactly. What matters is what happens when you create cognitive breathing room. Because that single junior analyst was no longer bogged down in manual data entry, they suddenly had the capacity, and honestly the imagination, to look at their job from a strategic level.
A spark of imagination.
That single spark of reclaimed time caused an entire function within the company to fundamentally reimagine how it operated.
That's incredible.
You cannot mandate that kind of organic momentum from the top down. It only happens when you empower the individual at the ground level.
Which honestly brings up a massive structural hurdle. Governance.
Oh, governance is huge.
Right. Empowering individuals sounds great, but in a biotech dealing with proprietary IP and sensitive patient data, governance is usually about locking things down. This brings us to the 72-hour transcript case study.
This is a masterclass in modern governance. Because traditionally, IT governance operated almost entirely on a culture of no,
It was about building walls.
blocking access and locking down data silos so nobody could make a mistake.
But if you lock down AI tools behind massive corporate firewalls where no one can easily use them, you completely neutralize the advantage you bought them for in the first place.
Which is why this company implemented a brilliantly simple policy. Any raw AI-generated transcript or data output deletes itself automatically in 72 hours.
So it's ephemeral by default.
Exactly. However, if an employee chooses to download that transcript into the company's permanent ecosystem before the 72 hours are up, company policy dictates that the employee instantly assumes full responsibility for the accuracy and compliance of that record.
It is a total paradigm shift in trust. It treats the scientists like adults.
Yes, it really does.
It essentially says, here is a highly capable, slightly unpredictable tool. You have the freedom to use it to move faster. But the moment you extract data from it for official use, you own the final review.
It brilliantly balances the utility of the tool with the very real records risk by shifting the accountability directly to the end user.
So if you step back and look at the common thread running through all four of these real-world cases, the 15-minute micro-enablement, the highly negotiated IND drafting, the analyst's reclaimed afternoon, and the 72-hour ephemeral governance.
Not a single one of them is about a massive top-down software deployment.
Right.
They are entirely about targeted, highly strategic human interventions. It is about actively removing friction, building institutional trust, and empowering individuals to safely change the fundamental physics of how they work.
So what does this all mean when we zoom out? We've analyzed the frameworks, the translation layer, the real-world friction, but I want to bring this back to the ultimate why.
The stakes behind all of this.
Exactly. Why did Titus, who was the source notes, has spent over a decade building AI into the fabric of biotech from the inside out? Navigating pandemic response at Google, engineering operations at Colossal, transformation layers at Avidity and Alloy, and even advising Congress. Why distill all of that hard-won experience into this specific field guide?
Because the real-world cost of getting this wrong is just devastating. The profound bottom line of this entire framework is that this transformation was never really about the software.
It was always about the people.
It has always been about the people and ultimately about who gets medicine to patients first.
Wow.
When an AI transformation stalls on culture, when a vital team gets bogged down in justified resistance or overly rigid governance, or simply a lack of human translation, it isn't just an IT failure.
It's much bigger than that.
It ultimately manifests as a delayed clinical trial, which means a therapy reaches a patient late, or sometimes never.
The stakes are literally life and death.
Hmm.
A company that had the technological capability to move faster failed to do so because their culture couldn't absorb the tool.
Exactly, but the inverse is what makes this so powerful. Building this operating system, taking the time to build true translational intelligence, directly accelerates translational science.
So that human translation layer is the literal bridge between a new algorithm existing on a server somewhere and a new cure existing in a patient's life.
That's exactly right.
And that brings us full circle. You cannot just bolt a probabilistic algorithm onto a broken deterministic process and expect a miracle. You have to build the airplane, piece by piece, while protecting the science.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
As we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to chew on, regardless of what field you're in. Think deeply about your own daily work and your own industry. What is your equivalent of a delayed therapy?
That's a great question to reflect on.
If you in your organization are currently just bolting new AI tools onto your unchanged traditional workflows, if you are just putting a digital screen on a typewriter, what vital outcome is currently being delayed because your organization hasn't built the translational intelligence to truly evolve?
Something is always being delayed.
Exactly. Keep in mind that opening thought. You can buy all the cutting-edge technology in the world, but if you don't fundamentally change how your people work, you are going to wake up tomorrow as the exact same company. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the organizational operating system of tomorrow. Keep questioning, keep translating, and we'll catch you next time.